Good evening. It's Tuesday, December 16th. I'm Tom Stoukas coming to you from Sarnia, Ontario. Hope everybody's having a nice night. Uh, so we're talking about my daily X feed. Again, the top story is this Australian terrorist attack that happened, I think, a couple days ago. And just the bizarre reaction by politicians in Canada and around the Western world about how instead of stopping mass immigration policies, they're talking about more gun control, gun grabs, and more hate crime laws or hate speech laws and censorship crackdown on social media. It's like basically everything except the one thing that would make the situation better, which is remigration and end to open border policies. But yeah, it's a bizarro world. And I was just looking at a clip just now on, I believe it's CBC. They had some security expert, talking head that they get on. And they said the intelligence agencies in Canada are worried that the white nationalists, the far right nationalist groups, will use this terrorist attack as an excuse to justify their anti-immigrant views. And they don't, so basically they're more worried about the nationalist groups that are opposed to mass immigration than the actual terrorist attacks that happened because of the diversity and the multicultural BS. So that shows, it's crazy. It's crazy. So they're just basically using this to just implement more censorship and more laws, laws. So we'll start there, I guess. This is the clip here. This is the clip from Wiretap Media. Tell me intelligence agencies and news media are working for the globalist without telling me they work for the globalist. So here's intelligence agencies in Canada are worried about white nationalists telling the truth. This is a crazy clip. Listen to this. Hopefully my sound works. Hold on.
Attack and others once it the report also does note that, quote, it is also likely that adherents of white nationalist and accelerationist narratives will use the attack, as well as the name and ethnicity released by authorities of the attackers, to encourage the spread of anti-immigration narratives. So they're also concerned about the impacts of the Bondi Beach attack and others once it comes out who actually stages these attacks, that they could be repurposed to help radicalize others.
So yeah, they're basically.
The report also does note that, quote, it is also likely that adherents of white nationalist and accelerationist narratives will use the attack, as well as the name and ethnicity released by authorities of the attackers, to encourage the spread of anti-immigration narratives. So they're also concerned about.
So basically, we're going to use the attack as a reason to justify our anti-immigration, let's say, mass immigration view. So I guess that makes you a terrorist for using evidence in front of your eyes is to, argue your position. That's extremism, according to our intelligence agencies. Yes. Like, you couldn't find a more bizarre response by our traitor leaders. Like, it's crazy. All right. And so, yeah, the thing with this attack on the Jewish community is instead of like obviously pointing to the obvious of mass immigration policies and like filling the country with all these people that want to kill you, instead of saying, yeah, it's because before a lot of the Jewish leaders would call, if you were against immigration from India or Africa and you're like, we don't need tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of these people from different cultures coming to Canada or US, if you were against that, Jewish leaders would call you like a ethno-nationalist and Nazi, basically, because you didn't want your country overrun. But because they get attacked, then they're dictating like the acceptable thing. They're not even actually against mass immigration. They want more hate laws. They don't want mass. They're not blaming mass immigration. And there's this interesting video. This is from a while ago. Like, who knows when is this from? This video kind of explains it all. So basically, they pushed for this state that we're in, where you have all these ethnic minorities shipped in. So you have like Muslims, Indians, Sikhs, Africans, whatever. And basically, they want this diverse group of things so there's no dominant group. And basically, it's easier for Jewish people to feel safe. I don't know. Because they think if there's too many white people, they'll turn into like Nazis, like Nazi Germany. So this is basically what this guy says. It's very interesting. Let's watch this.
No, they wanted to get more. They wanted to
have more third world immigration.
Again, my view has been one of the constants of 20th century Jewish immigration, of Jewish intellectual movements, has been to lessen the power of Europeans in America.
And why is that?
And because they felt that that power represented a threat to them, and especially in the long run.
They wanted to have the United States become less Christian, less
European.
white European.
Yeah,
why is that?
Because, and then you can easily find Jewish activists who say that when they talk about immigration. But the idea is that if you have a homogeneous European society, you can easily evolve towards Nazism.
Gets too Nazi-like.
But if you have a society where each ethnic group has a sort of, only a very, very limited power, then that could never happen. You can never have a coalition of
So
white
they wanted to have a multicultural.
a multicultural.
So bring in as many Indians as we can.
And in fact, you said that multiculturalist ideology was in fact invented by Jewish intellectuals.
Yeah, in
Was it
Horace
Horace
Kallen? What? He's a philosopher.
Who's that person?
Horace Kallen, Kallen. He's very famous. He was a Zionist. He was very strongly identified Jewish himself, and he didn't like this melting pot idea, which actually was advanced by an earlier generation of Jewish intellectuals. But Kallen, liked the idea that the United States would be composed of these groups, of ethnic groups that would sort of stay separate, like Jews have always had.
So it makes the United States safer for people to be Jews if there's not a large dominant white majority.
Absolutely, because again, when Jews came to this country, they saw American culture in negative terms, and
It looked too much like Nazi Germany there.
Yeah,
It's too white.
They actually did a survey or something back in the 60s. They talked to Jews. They asked them, would it be possible that it could happen here? And you didn't have to say what it was. It is the Holocaust. In other words, something horrible happened to Jews. So that's what.
Hey, wait.
No, they wanted to get more.
Basically, you're not allowed to be against this multicultural policy, even now with the terrorist attacks. It's gun grabs and hate speech laws. All right, let's go to the next one. Ban me. This is horrible too. Like, this is an example of bringing the third world to Canada. This extortion thing is getting out of control. In Canada, it's Indian extortion gangs in Surrey, BC, Brampton, And even Calgary, I think they had a town hall on extortion. They're having extortion town halls in Canada now. In like every city, big city it seems. So now Patrick Brown says the city of Brampton is going to request that the federal government, take a bunch of actions to confront the extortion crisis. Basically spending a lot of money on police resources, courts, all sorts of government resources. Like we have so many to spare. Just for, let's see what he says here. So, more police, funding for victim support and community outreach, including culturally informed services, of course, safety planning and initiatives that encourage reporting and protect those who come forward. So a bunch of money there. Establish formal intelligence sharing and coordination framework between federal, provincial, and municipal law. So basically, to disrupt transnational criminal networks. Basically, tons of resources and money being poured into what is a problem that we imported from India. The extortion gangs. Showing up in every major Canadian city. It's ridiculous. Patrick Brown. I don't trust that guy at all. I'm getting sick of this extortion stuff. Like, the courts, no wonder the courts are jammed up. We got all these gangs and criminals that we bring in. All right, here we go. Let's go on to the next one. I'm sure we'll be hearing lots more from the extortion stuff, because in Canada, you can get away with basically anything, and you won't go to jail. You won't get deported. Well, maybe you'll get deported now. They're starting to maybe they'll start deporting people. All right, Wiretap Media ceases claims there is a realistic possibility of a violent extremist attack on the Jewish community in Canada. I'm surprised. We're due for a good one. Like a big one. Every other country gets it. We got enough crazy people in this country. Meanwhile, it was the president, and he probably won't even get barely any jail time. Meanwhile, it was the president of the Jewish Congress, Bernie Farber, who campaigned for the Migration of Muslims and Islamophobia Bill M103. All right, let's look at this.
Possibility of a violent extremist attack. And with more on that, Canada's spy agency says that a threat cannot be ruled out. An intelligence brief prepared by the Integrated Threat Assessment Center says there's a realistic possibility of a violent extremist attack taking place in Canada, including one targeting the Jewish community. The briefing says the agency cannot discount the possibility of violence from a lone actor or small group, saying it could happen with little or no warning.
Watch this video.
It could happen. It could not happen. We'll see. Hopefully it doesn't happen, of course. Because they need to crack down on the white nationalist groups. They can't be bothered with this kind of stuff. All right, cooking some bacon. There's Tara Armstrong here from that One BC party. Canadians can't afford their own homes, stop mass migration. By letting in 2.28 million immigrants into Canada in 2022 and 2023, that's a lot, holy. And building only 460,000 homes during this period. Canada ordered only one home for every 5 migrants and had a net short. All right, so yeah, no wonder the housing prices have gone up. Yet another way they've screwed us. Simple solutions, though. Remigration will free up a lot of real estate. Okay, it might not be good for the slumlords, but oh well. Here's this. Why has Facebook allowed racism against whites only? Facebook's race-blind algorithm backfires in their face. Finds 90% of hate speech was directed towards white people and men. Oh yeah, it's been going on for years, not just in Facebook, but in the media and movies. That's literally the only racism you're allowed without being canceled. And people were like, I remember years ago, people were like, oh, you guys are just complaining. You guys run everything and you're just complaining. So like 30 years later, yeah, we're basically hate speech targets all the time now, but we're just complainers. All right. Here was a thing I saw on Canadian Border Services Agency. They could be a great agency. Nearly 19,000 foreign nationals were removed from Canada this year. 20,000, that doesn't sound as high as it should be. For violating our immigration laws. All right. 20,000. We got to get those numbers up for next year. All right. I missed this yesterday. As Doug Ford announced he wants to turn Niagara Falls into like the Las Vegas of the North. Spend billions for mega casinos, theme park, mass tourism. Like, look at this. His head looks, it's getting bigger on his fat body. What's he saying here? This is all fake. It's not going to happen. If it does, it'll be corrupt as hell.
Announce our government destination Niagara strategy, a multi-billion-dollar plan to build new world-class attractions, elevate Niagara's casino.
Yeah, I'm not going to listen to that. But the thing is, with the reason people go to Vegas, I know Vegas is kind of dying now because of the online gambling and whatever, but the reason I think when people were going to Vegas from Canada is because of the weather. It was hot, and they wanted to get away from winter. Niagara Falls is right by Buffalo, and it's frozen half the year. Plus, even if they do a nice place, it's just going to be full of Indians. So, yeah, I'm not optimistic about Niagara Falls. Have you been to Niagara Falls lately? Yikes! Niagara Falls ain't what it used to be. But and they gouge you too. You can't even, you go for breakfast, it's like $100 for a family. It's crazy. So I don't have that much faith in Doug Ford's $1 billion Las Vegas, Niagara Falls vision. He ain't Bugsy Siegel. He did deal in hash, but he's not Bugsy Siegel. He won't build Las Vegas. It's freezing half the year. People aren't going to come to Niagara Falls. All right, unless they're refugees. All right. Here's Wiretap Media again. Need more proof that Zionist lobby has infiltrated the Conservative Party. Pierre's not. He always panders to these Zionists. He says like Israel would do the world a favor by bombing Iran, all this, whatever. But he didn't say shit for Canadians when it really mattered. When the borders, he wanted to fill the country with immigrants. He wanted the COVID crackdown or the COVID lockdowns and measures. So, but yeah, when the Jewish people have an issue, he's right there. But he does this with all the groups, the Indians and the Sikhs or whatever.
Heckling your father during his speeches is something I'm used to. And anyway, this is a time when we need the story of the Maccabees, isn't it? It's a time when it feels like everything
He's such
is
a phony.
against, the side of good, where the Jewish people are once again under attack this week. Another merciless, vicious, cruel attack against Jewish.
He didn't say anything. He doesn't say anything when the churches are burning down or when
literally trying to light up the world and murdered and massacred by the forces of evil. The echoes of October 7th still ring in our ears, and it may seem hopeless and despair. It makes me feel like hopelessness and despair when we see these attacks happen again and again. It seems like just when things settle down, once again evil strikes, giving nobody any rest. But if you look back at the history of the Jewish people, the reality is that there have been countless enemies who have tried to strike down the Jewish people.
All right.
Those enemies.
You get the message. He's a good prairie goy. Here's another one. His predecessor, Aaron O'Toole. He's beefing with. He's calling people names on the internet, saying Canadian nationalists or whatever, idiots or whatever. But this is the guy. He lost to Trudeau. He wanted more. He wanted like the Emergency Act for the COVID. This doughboy. Look at him. Such a weak and pathetic guy. Look at that guy. Weak and pathetic Aaron O'Toole. This was kind of funny. I don't know if I should play this. No, we're not going to play that. This is, we're talking about Pierre. We're going to be talking a lot about Pierre in the coming weeks, because he's got his leadership review in January. And if he loses, rumor is he might lose a couple more MPs. Maybe at least one, just to get the majority for Carney. So it'll be interesting to follow Pierre's journey over the next month. And I predicted that he wouldn't be a leader for the next election, just because he lost his own riding, and most people would quit if you lose your own riding in an election, most people. But he didn't, so I don't think, I could be wrong though, he could go into the next election as the leader, but I don't know. But these are some videos. He's so fake. He just panders to everybody except for Canadians. When actual Canadians, he won't pander to us. Or he does for about 5 minutes.
And as we traveled along, though, I realized that this was the most scientifically, democratically, and politically advanced country in the world. Incredible. And as we traveled along, though, I realized that this was
so he's sopping
the
for
most
to the Jews.
scientifically.
Who's the next one?
For everybody, the common sense of the common people united for our common home. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.
ਬੋਲੇ ਸੋ ਨਿਹਾਲ.
ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ. Thank you. Okay.
She's with the Sikh constituency. And then this one, what's this one?
We're going to back up 30,000 small study loans so that immigrants who need time off work to study up to the Canadian standard can do so without ending up on the street. They can have a little bit of money to pay their bills while they're off work. And also I'm going to work with the professional bodies to create modules that allow future immigrants to begin studying and preparing to get credentialed in Canada before they even arrive. And that way, while they're waiting to process their application to come to Canada, they're also preparing to get licensed to work in our professions. So, in other words, let's get the gatekeepers out of the way, get
them out of the way.
Big, powerful, inflation-proof paychecks. I'm going to back up 30,000 small study loans.
That's classic Pierre. Like, before he finally figured out people aren't into the mass immigration, and he better say, he's got to say something negative. Before he figured it out, which took him forever to figure it out, he was saying all this, always saying stuff like this, because he wanted their votes, So now he's all this anti-immigration, whatever. Like, he's just such a indecisive, unprincipled guy. Like, he just looks at the poll or what's good for popular, what's popular for a good outcome for him. Very, very fake. That's it, fake. See, Carney's not fake. Carney's a dyed-in-the-wool globalist. He doesn't deny it. He wears it proudly. What's Pierre? Who knows what Pierre is? Okay. So yeah, Pierre's gonna be the focus in the next month, and you know, especially and whether he'll lose any MPs. I think that'll be the big story in Canada, Canadian politics at least. The Liberal Party's neck and neck with the Conservatives in polls, but Carney clobbers Pierre in favorability. This is a good point. I like this post today. It really explains the whole Pierre situation. He's a phony anyway, but it explains also why he lost the election. So it was not Pierre Poilievre who put the Conservatives within striking distance of a majority. It was Justin Trudeau. Voters flocked to the Conservatives because they hated Justin Trudeau, and as soon as he was gone, they flocked right back to the Liberals because they still don't like Pierre. Pierre is a drag on the CPC that cost them the last election. So that's according to Jeff Evely, who doesn't like Pierre for good reasons. So I thought that's perfect explanation of what happened with the election. So basically Pierre's there's going to be knives out for him. I feel he's toast. I'm still predicting it. All right, here's another good post. And this really dovetails with what we talk about on the mass migration policies. You have a perfect example of, you know, proving us right, saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't be bringing guys from Afghanistan, from Pakistan, from tribal Africa, from India, from the endless supply of Indians. Maybe we shouldn't be doing all that. But instead, they do the opposite. They say, we got to crack down on free speech instead of mass migration. So here's a good rundown. It says, number one, Jewish groups demand white countries bring in millions of savages. Savages attack Jews and whites. Jews cry about anti-Semitism and blame whites. Jews demand more censorship and gun control targeting the white populations. It's totally true. Like, not trying to be controversial, it's totally true. About them bringing in millions of people from other countries, and when you criticize it, you're called an ethno-nationalist. And then now they're starting to go crazy, and they're crying about anti-Semitism only, instead of, hey, we can't even live our lives without getting killed, or the chance of getting killed for no good reason. So, kind of bugs me a lot. I don't want to hear no bitching about anti-Semitism. All right, what's next? Tom Murat. So, if your community has to put up concrete barriers around Christmas celebrations and public events because they're afraid of terrorist attacks, then stop bringing in the terrorists by the millions. The men in Poland stood together on their border with Belarus and stopped foreigners from getting in. So yeah, basically, if you're a country in Europe where you can't have a Christmas market without getting plowed over, and to a certain extent in Canada and US, then that's another reason, you know, why we shouldn't have mass immigration from different cultures. But, you know, they'll blame the white nationalists for that too. I don't know. They'll find a way. So yeah, a lot of people's heads in the sand, man. All right. Here's Viktor Orban, who's the only one who talks any sense in Europe, and I wish we had someone like this in Canada. Let's listen. We have nobody. If Pierre talked like this guy, I would run out to vote for him. Listen what he says.
változások, születésszám
Oh, he's talking
és így tovább.
Hungarian.
És hogy
I know
Afrika
he
még
speaks
meg sem
English, that's why I
mozdult,
thought he's...
mert onnan jön majd az igazán nagy tömeg, és
That's at least me.
Európa egy civilizációs megsemmisülés. Én inkább azt mondanám, hogy egy civilizációs átalakulás.
Civilization transformation.
Van. A hagyományos
Traditional Western Christian values disappearing.
Azok kiveszőben, sőt ki is űzik őket a politikából,
Chased out of
és
politics,
helyette bejött egy
replaced by a liberal globalist
szemléletmód,
mindset, which has
ami
brought
pedig magával
migration
hozta a
with it.
migrációt, és a mostani elit kifejezetten
The current
támogatja
elite
is
actively
a
supports
migránsok
bringing
behozatalát
migrants into
Európába,
Europe,
és a migráció, meg minden, ami ezzel
and
együtt
migration,
jár,
along with
demográfiai
everything,
változás, születésszám és így
changes
tovább,
everything.
és hogy
Okay.
Afrika még meg sem mozdult, mert onnan jön majd az igazán nagy tömeg, és addigra itt már ki lesz építve nekik egy fogadóállomás. Ez együtt bizony Európát egy civilizációs totális átalakításba, bizonyos nézőpontból megsemmisítésbe sodorhatja. Az amerikai dokumentum azért fontos, mert azt mutatja,
Anyway,
hogy mi nem beszéltünk.
I thought I was going to speak in English because he speaks pretty decent English. He's like the only leader who says no war with Russia and no war with Russia and no open borders and flooding the country. He's getting a lot of flack for it. Anyway, I always look at his stuff, but he seems pretty I mean, he was just reelected, so can't be that bad. But I wish our politicians would say stuff like that. Won't happen, though. I don't see any of them, but in the present, saying anything near like that. So here's Canada. Providing another $50 million to buy drones and drone parts for Ukraine. A lot of money being stolen from Canada, Canadian taxpayers. Over $20 billion sent to Ukraine. We're still waiting for that thing to resolve, if it even gets resolved or it goes to World War III. Gotta go. That's another thing we'll be keeping an eye on. Here's this. The post-pandemic Trudeau wave was especially crazy, but immigration has been too high ever since Mulroney abolished the tap-on, tap-off policy in 1990. For 35 years, mass immigration without a pause has enriched banks, real estate developers, strip malls, and big box stores. Yeah. So basically, you wonder, why would rich people want all these migrants coming in by the millions? It's because they don't have to live around them. They don't have to get like killed by them or robbed by them or scammed by them, because they usually live in a gated community and go through the lounge at the airport instead of waiting. So what that means, the millions of people, means more customers for them, more market, more asset like their assets go up in value, their stocks go up in value. That's all they care about. More customers, bringing in more customers. And it makes sense. Like when you have millions more Indians or coming into Canada, they're going to spend money on phones and cars and all sorts of groceries. Yeah, but they don't care about us. All right. This was a good meme on the Australian cops, how they handled the terrorist attack. Australia, when they see the wrong pronoun, it's Arnold there from Commando. And then when jihadis are shooting people, that's the breakdancer lady from the Olympics. That's a good one. Or when you could have put it for COVID too, when you, instead of pronoun, you could have said when you're not wearing a mask at the restaurant. Australia was pretty strict on the COVID. All right, next post. Third World Toronto, a Sankofa Christmas. A friendly reminder to recite your African ancestral land acknowledgement today. So this used to be Young Dundas Square, now it's Sankofa Square, and it totally looks like a different country when you go there. It's full of Instead of families and tourists, it's full of like dudes with, oh, they got the fillers. Looks a little nicer there. But yeah, African. I don't know why that's there. Like, it's so ridiculous. I hate that name. It used to be nice. Let's do an African ancestral acknowledgement right at week before Christmas. All right, here's another good meme. Australian police, when you're not wearing a mask, they choke you out. When you're a mass shooter, they hide behind the car. Yeah, totally true. They were vicious during COVID because, I don't know, people weren't going to shoot them. All right. Next, anti-Jewish terror attack in Canada imminent, inevitable. Oh, we won't hear the end of this if that happens. Oh my God. Let's read this article. Who says this? All right. Who says this? It's just a matter of time. Come on. That's what security experts and former diplomats told the Toronto Sun in the wake of Sunday's deadly anti-Jewish terror attack on Bondi Beach in Australia, which left at least 15 dead and dozens more injured. We should not assume that we're immune from this kind of attack in Canada. In fact, I'm worried it's imminent, said Arthur Wilczynski, a former Canadian ambassador and senior national security official. It only takes one failure on the part of Canada's national security and intelligence agencies, and only takes on one failure on the part of police for something like this to happen in our own country. Okay. So basically, it's just one dude saying it. Yeah, we won't never hear the end of it if it happens here. Like, I'm saying like a big one. Oh, hopefully it doesn't happen. So, anyway, that's it. Looks like. Oh, yeah. That's the big thing. Hopefully it doesn't happen. Fingers crossed. So, that's about it for today, it looks like. The end of the line of the X feed. So, next broadcast will be Saturday. Saturday, 17th. December 20th, I think. So Saturday, December 20th. I'm sure lots of shit will happen until then on the X timeline. So until then, we'll see you then. Have a nice night.